Jon-Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley were announced and introduced as GM and head coach of the Miami Dolphins today. We went live on the channel for it, but right now we are going to do our press conference takeaways because there is a lot to discuss. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nic Rohloff. The theme of the day, it must have been said at least 4 or 5 times by Jon-Eric Sullivan specifically in his opening remarks, as well as in responding to some questions from the media. Draft, develop, and retain our own. He has said that in the past when he was working for the Packers doing interviews. He said that in his kind of statement that he put out on Twitter following the hiring a couple Fridays ago. And he said it, I think, 3 or 4 times today. There is one common theme in the new era of the Dolphins, and that is going to be drafting at a high level, we hope, and then developing those players and re-signing them. You will not see good draft picks like Christian Wilkins, like Robert Hunt, like Andrew Van Ginkel, play really well in Miami and then leave in free agency. No, if the Dolphins hit on those draft picks and they develop them and establish them as key members of this culture, they're going to be re-signed. And I love the philosophy that both Jeff Hafley believes in and Jon-Eric Sullivan believes in. It's amazing to have this phrase we've used a lot, but an aligned vision. And I mentioned earlier, we were live earlier today. We go live for big events around the Miami Dolphins and bring YouTube videos every day. We're 36 subscribers from a big milestone, 80,000 subscribers. Please join the channel. Be greatly appreciated. Let's get to 80K today. All right, number 1 in the press takeaways. Number 1, Jeff Hafley will call plays. And if you watched our Wednesday afternoon video, you would have known this. I did kind of borderline report, but a couple people told me that were close to Miami and Jeff Hafley that he was going to plan on calling defensive plays. And when asked about if he plans on doing that, he said yes. He said, it's very important to me. The details will be exactly how I want them. And I do like this. Originally, I was questionable if I would want him to call plays or not because I want him as a first-time head coach to focus on the other things, right, that you need to do as the head coach, the face of an organization. But the more I thought about it, I like this. 1, because he's a very good defensive play caller. He was really good for Ohio State in 2019 before getting the Boston College job. He was really good in Green Bay the past 2 years, having the Packers defense top half in the NFL in back-to-back seasons, top 10 in his first year in 2024. But I also like this because it will show accountability, right? You will know Jeff Hafley is doing a good job or a bad job, at least in one aspect of coaching, based on how the defense plays in a week-to-week basis. And even if they don't have the best defense in the world because they're limited in personnel, which is very possible, we'll be able to tell if the team is making improvements, if the thought process of play calling is there, if he gets overwhelmed by calling plays defensively as a head coach. Like, I think it will give us a peek behind the curtain more than if he wasn't on if Hafley is a good head coach or a not, right? So I like it. But pin comment on today's show. Do you like Jeff Hafley calling defensive plays for Miami? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Number 2 takeaway. Sully, he addressed the quarterback position. We knew this was going to happen today, right? He was never going to say it in his opening remarks, but you knew once they opened the floor to media members to ask questions, he was going to be asked about Tua and the QB position. Well, here's what he said. Lots of respect for Tua. He's accomplished a lot in this league. It's hard for me to talk about Tua without talking to him. I also thought Quinn did a great job at the end of the year, unable to give you an answer on the QB position today. And for some fans out there that might be a little disappointed, if you will, with no lack of detailed explanation on what they plan to do with Tua, whether they keep him, they move on from him, will they try to trade him, will they cut him, well, when do they cut him, pre-June 1st or post-June 1st? He was never going to go in depth because I do believe him in the statement of saying, well, he hasn't talked to Tua, right? He doesn't know who he is as a person, and Tua doesn't know who Sully is as a person. I think those two will converse. There will be a larger conversation. There will be more of an assessment on the roster, the avenues to move on from Tua, and then Sully will make that decision. But it was never going to happen today. Now, I do think he might have slipped up a little bit when talking about free agency and making adjustments and additions to the roster. He said that we will use free agency when we get to a healthy cap situation, because we know that is not where Miami is, right? They're projected to have $23, $30 negative million in cap space, so they got to make roster moves, whether it be trades, cuts, restructures, extensions, to get more cap space. But the biggest question on how you do that is, what are you doing with Tua? Well, we know that if you cut Tua pre-June 1st, you take in a $99 million dead cap. That increases your cap bill this year by $42 million, which would then make it extremely difficult to have flexibility to sign players in free agency or even sign your own draft class. I have said I'd be fine with it and find other avenues to make cuts to just get by, and it would give you over $120 million in space in 2027. But based off this quote from Sully, I do not anticipate them doing that. If they cut Tua, I bet it would be a post-June 1st 1 designation, which still has a $67 million dead cap hit for this year, but the money is spread out a little bit between 2026 and 2027. But here's another interesting part of what Sully said about the QB position. You can't wait until you don't have a quarterback to find one. We're going to invest in that position every year if we can. We will draft QBs every year, if not every other year. We'll be very active to make that room as deep as possible. We have competence, guys. I'm serious. It is such a night and day difference. And I can't guarantee that Jon-Eric Sullivan and this new Dolphins coaching staff and front office will work out and be good at what they do. I can't guarantee it. But what I can guarantee is that they have the right mindset and the right plan to ultimately rebuild the Miami Dolphins. They have the right plan. They have the right blueprint. They just got to actually do the right things. But they have the right plan. You look at the last 10 years, Chris Greer drafted 4 quarterbacks. 4. That's not enough. You need to invest in the position. You need to invest in the trenches. I do believe Jon-Eric Sullivan in this front office recognize what has driven Miami into the ground over the last 10, 15 years, longer than that if you want to go back to the playoff win drought, and they will do the opposite. Because if we're going to be honest, the opposite is exactly what Miami should be doing to get out of the spot they are in right now. Today's show is brought to you by Marsmen. And fellas, is there a time where you're in the gym, you're working out, and you're losing it? Same workout, same diet, but you feel like you're moving through the mud? Well, guess what? Now you could get back to a stronger physical performance with Marsmen, designed to help free lock testosterone so your body can actually use it. No synthetics, no needles, just real ingredients that help optimize energy, focus, and strength. It supports healthy T levels, energy, and stamina. You see the bottle that it comes in right here, sleek design. You just take the capsules as directed, and you will start to feel the difference. Made in the USA, third-party tested, and guess what, too? 90-day money-back guarantee. There's no risk. Worst case scenario, you don't absolutely love it, and you get your money back, but I'm going to bet you like it because over 91% of users report higher energy levels. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's a perfect way to kick off the new year strong. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts at checkout. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them. It's very important that you support our show and tell them we sent you. Please do that. Shout out to Marsmen for sponsoring the show. Number 3 on my takeaways from the press conference. Jeff Hafley, yeah, he's a leader. Everything that we wanted Mike McDaniel to be in terms of the way he speaks to the media, the way he handles himself with the media, in the locker room, in teaching, that is what we got here. I had to be honest, I can't tell you if he's going to be a good head coach that brings Miami to many playoff victories. But I can tell you that he will absolutely be someone loved in the locker room and will shoot you straight forward when answering questions on a week-to-week basis. And here's like such a little minor thing that stood out to me. When Jeff Hafley was being asked questions by Dolphins media, you know how he responded every time? Eye contact, right with them. You could tell. He never left their eyes. He didn't look down. He didn't look to the side. right at the person who asked the question. And I don't want to throw any more shade than it has to. But you look at what Mike McDaniel does at the media and the pressers. He's looking over there. He's looking over there. He's looking down. He's going, that's not who Jeff Hafley is. He's confident in himself. He has conviction in everything he says. And he will treat you like an equal. I think it speaks to him as a leader. It speaks to who he is as an individual. And it feels like a real nice breath of fresh air. I mean, he even said this when talking about how he coaches and he teaches. I learned how to tell people the truth. I learned how to tell players the truth, even if it's not what they wanted to hear. I learned what it's like to hold people to an extreme level of accountability. I know it's just a press conference, guys. I've been won over. When the hiring was announced, I said it's solid, and I give it a B-. I'm not going to change my grade. I'm not going to change my initial thought process until we see him actually coach on the sidelines. But when you talk about my optimism levels for him as the head coach in Miami for the next hopefully 10 years plus, I've been won over. Because at the bare minimum, I have a guy leading this organization that people can look to and believe in as a leader. And that is the most important thing to me almost as a head coach. You could talk about scheme. You could talk about clock management. You could talk about all that stuff. But I think the number one thing that's necessary as a head coach is for your locker room to believe in you and for everyone to know that's the right man for the job. And just hearing Jeff Hafley speak, I feel that vibe. And a lot of people are wondering why he left Boston College. Well, we got an answer. Because remember, he was the head coach at Boston College for 4 years, 2020 to 2023. He was not fired. He was not. He openly left to join the Packers as a defensive coordinator, and he was asked why he did that. He said it's because he loves football, and he wants to coach football. And he said with the new landscape in that sport, the NIL, the transfer portal, all the money, it's basically wild, wild west out there. He said he just wanted to get back to coaching football because that's what he loves. He didn't have to worry about recruiting, academics, residency, the NIL and portal stuff. He just wanted to coach. And that's why he's here in the NFL, and that's why he's the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And speaking of the past coach for Miami, Mike McDaniel, Jon-Eric Sullivan was asked point blank, what was your role in firing Mike McDaniel, and what was your role in hiring Jeff Hafley? And in the response to the Mike McDaniel part of it, he said that was not me. That was an ownership decision. That they talked during the first interview, but then by the time the second interview rolled around with Sully in Miami's brass, McDaniel was gone. Now, did Sully tell them in the first interview that he would like to bring in his own guy? Probably. And he would like to bring in his own guy, like Hafley, potentially, so they have an aligned vision on how to attack this rebuild and hopefully do it in a good, constructive manner. But he was not the one who said, fire, fire, fire. But I'll be honest, they made the right decision. They did. And even if you believe Mike McDaniel is a better head coach than Jeff Hafley, you might think that. That might be true. If you want the Dolphins to make the playoffs and rebuild their locker room, their culture, their roster, you needed to make this move because we've talked about that aligned vision and how important that really is for the Dolphins going forward. You were not going to have that if you kept Jon-Eric Sullivan or hired any new GM, but also kept Mike McDaniel. You needed to bring in a new GM and you needed to bring in a new head coach that share the same type of principles and can work together day in, day out to build this thing the right way. And that's what Jeff Hafley and Jon-Eric Sullivan will do day in and day out. But pick a head coach for me. Are you now won over by Jeff Hafley? If so, let me know. Or if you would still like to have Mike McDaniel, you can let me know as well. Final takeaway here. We're building through the trenches. And maybe he's just saying it because we heard Chris Greer say, oh, we're going to invest in the trenches, and then they draft Liam Eichenberg, Jonas Avinaya, and pay James Daniels, who never plays one series for the Miami Dolphins in 2025. But he said, point blank, it always starts with the quarterback. You need to have the right trigger man at the helm, but you have to build this from the inside out. You have to put an infrastructure around your quarterback, which puts him in a good position to succeed. Whether it is the running back in the position group, whether it's the offensive line so he's protected and not getting crushed every single game and injured, he believes it starts from the trenches out. And if you look at the way the Green Bay Packers build their organization, when was the last time you said the Packers don't have a good offensive line? Seriously. Maybe there's years of like 2018 or something, but on the overarching last 20 years, if you ranked every team as like which teams are the best protecting the quarterback and running the football, the Packers are going to be in the top 10. So he understands the right way to build a football team, and he understands what he's looking for and what he should be looking for in these prospects, because they've hit, in talking about Green Bay as an organization, on as many day 3 picks on the offensive line as you can imagine. David Bakhtiari, one of the best offensive tackles in that franchise's history. One of their best offensive tackles right now is Zach Tom. Both picks in the 4th, 5th round. I'm excited about this, man. And Jeff Hafley actually did talk about the offense as well, and it coincides with the building from the trenches mantra, right? Hafley said when he wants to talk about offense, he obviously focuses defense, but when he thinks about the offense he wants on his football team, he wants them to be physical up front, run the football effectively, run the ball effectively when the defense knows you're going to want to run the football, and then hit explosives in that 2nd and 3rd level on under center play action, screen games, and so on and so on. Like, I think this is the right step, and I don't want to oversell Dolphins fans because it could not work out. But what they said today told me everything I needed to know, that Miami is hopefully going to build out this new iteration of Dolphins football with the right mindset and with the right way. Now, this offensive coordinator hire will be crucial, though. It needs to be someone that is aligned in that same offensive thinking. We've talked about Brian Angelico, the Vikings pass game coordinator and tight end coach, coming from that Kevin O'Connell system, the Mike McCarthy system. That is a system that is very much similar to what Hafley said, right? Running the football effectively. Minnesota's done that countlessly over the last 4 or 5 seasons, and then running play action off of that. That's why Sam Darnold had a resurgent year in 2024, because they ran the ball well with Aaron Jones, and then they also were able to run play action off of it. I'm excited to see about who they hire as offensive coordinator, and excited to see this plan come to fruition. We only have one offensive coordinator candidate officially named. We've talked about Brian Angelico and how that is rumored, but before the press conference on Thursday afternoon or Thursday morning, it came out from Diana Rossini that Miami have requested to interview Gerard Johnson. He's the quarterback coach for the Houston Texans. Obviously hasn't been the best couple of years for C.J. Stroud, but he's been very crucial in his early development. We'll see if he ultimately gets the job or not, but I did want to let you guys know about that. And that's why you subscribe, because we have the press conference takeaways. We have the live show for the press conference. We have the news to follow. We are the best place for Dolphins news and rumors that you need to know. I really do say that because we are here twice a day and live every week. So please join the channel, and I promise you won't regret it.